there are some other fighters and some fights that you could make. Could you give us a hint towards what else could end up being on that card here in Australia?
Well, we have this, the new undisputed lightweight champion, Teofimo Lopez, who had this great victory over Vasyl Lomachenko. We hope to have him come over and give Kambosos, who is the IBF, won the IBF Eliminator, give him a shot at the title. That's a great possibility. I'd like also to get in touch with Timmy Sue, Costa Zoo's son, because I promoted a number of fights years ago for Costa Zoo. I'd love to have him on the card, make it a huge, huge night for the sport of boxing in Australia.
This is TstreeT Controversy with TstreeT Controversy Live and FightView360.com. Got my colleague Big J on the line. Basically, I don't see that card happening. Me and Big J was just talking about it before I hit record on this video. So what I'm saying is this: I see Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos. I forgot exactly where, but as soon as I find it, I'm going to do a video. He did an interview somewhere. It may have been on his Instagram, where he's okay with going to Australia to fight George Kambosos to defend his title because it will be a very lucrative fight for him. He's talking, what is he saying? 7, potentially 8 figures. We don't know, but you have to also understand that Australia is able to have a crowd and their COVID numbers are low. George Kambosos had beat Lee Selby to become the IBF #1 contender at 135 pounds. He's also talking about putting Joshua Franco, WBA world champion. What is that? 115 pounds, right, Jay?
Yeah, my
115. Yeah, right. That Moloney, the one with the controversy this past week, against Joshua Franco in Australia. So you have a super card for Australian boxing and a significant card, a very big card globally, worldwide, if it would have come through, where you would have Lopez versus Kambosos, Moloney versus Franco 3, Jason Moloney versus a TBA, and then a Tim Tszyu. Now, of course, the Tim Tszyu is wishful thinking. We're going to bring Big J in. What's your thoughts on Bob Arum's, wishful thinking with this card and the possibilities of it happening?
The possibilities of all three, George Kambosos Jr., the Moloney twins, and Tim Tszyu on the same card ain't going to happen.
Why? Who wouldn't be on the card?
I honestly believe that Tim Tszyu wouldn't, because Tim Tszyu is not a top-ranked fighter. He's with No Limit Boxing, which is an Australian promotion. And I would find it very unlikely, and I'm not speaking for Tim Tszyu, I'm not speaking for No Limit Boxing, but I would find it very unlikely that they would want to play second, if not third fiddle to George Kambosos Jr. and the Moloney twins, considering that on December 16th, Tim Tszyu is going to sell out his own show. He's already a main event pay-per-view fighter. Why would he want to play second fiddle to two guys who have less of a following than he does?
So really quick, even though we have an individual video coming on this, who is Tim Tszyu fighting and where?
A New Zealand bloke called Bowen Morgan. He's a 147er. We've talked about this before. He's a 147er moving up to 154. It's December 16th at the Bankwest Stadium, which is Parramatta's home stadium out in West Sydney. So it's on December 16th. Also, Paul Gallen versus Mark Hunt's on the card. That's the co-main event. So Tim Tszyu's got his own stuff going on, and I don't see that card. I don't see all those guys getting on the one card. I think it's two.
And to double down on that, I don't see it either. Tim Tszyu is currently ranked number 2 by the WBO. He will be the next mandatory in line within the next year or so to fight for the 154-pound title currently held by Patrick Teixeira. So to see him play potentially, which would be third fiddle to, basically for a pay-per-view card, normally here in the States, you would open up with 4 fights. So basically he would be the second fight, and then You would have Andrew Moloney versus Joshua Franco after him, and then still the main event. I don't see that happening. However, a Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos with a Andrew Moloney or Joshua Franco, Andrew Moloney 3 with a Jason Moloney versus a to be announced, a TBA. I can see that happening. Do you agree?
I do see that happening, but I think, in my personal opinion, if I put my promoter's hat on, they need to be different, separate cards. Here's the reason. Moloney v Franco is the biggest controversy of this year. That fight alone could warrant its own card, right?
I agree.
That would easily warrant its own card. Now, here's the other thing that Bob Arum needs. If he doesn't know this, he'll need to know it real quick. Andrew Moloney's from Melbourne. Even though he lives up in Queenscliff, New South Wales, he's originally from Melbourne, right? Melbourne has huge stadiums, like the MCG is like 100,000 people. But Marvel Stadium can hold about 55,000 people. UFC's packed out at their, I think the Stylebender beat Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, covered that fight.
This year or last year. Yeah, that was it there. That can hold about 55. That's where Rousey, Holly Holm kicked the shit out of Rousey. So that place is no stranger to huge, big fights. Now, the Moloney twins on that card alone would sell out Marvel main event with all the history of the controversy, the bullshit decision of the second fight, blah, 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 blah. That would sell out Marvel Stadium by itself. It wouldn't sell out the MCG, but it would sell out Marvel. Now, George is a Sydney boy from New South Wales. They've got ANZ Stadium, as I previously stated.
What's the name of the stadium?
ANZ. It's named after a bank. Australian New Zealand Bank Stadium is what it's called. It's where the Sydney Olympics was held, the open and closing ceremony.
Gotcha.
That's why they built it out in Homebush. So that holds, I think 80 or 90,000 people. It fluctuates every day, but about 80,000 people. They probably get about 70. I don't think they get a pack.
So
they
you
get
really
about
think
70.
that Franco versus Moloney 3 can be its own card, and it can sell out how many?
About 50 in Marvel Stadium without too many dramas.
You think so?
Bloody oath. There's the significance of this fight, right? The controversy, as I said, it's just repeat. Everyone in Australia has lost their minds over this shit, and it's just drawing up attention.
It did. You know what? Nobody really cared about this fight, really, but the controversy did make it bigger.
Well, let me ask you a question. Who's talking about Kell versus Crawford? Fucking nobody. No one gives two. No one cares about that fight. No one cares about the fact that, well, Crawford was always going to take out Kell Brook in under 6 rounds anyway. I mean, so, no impressive feat there. But no one cares about. Everyone's talking about bloody Franco versus Moloney too. No one cares about Crawford Brook, and that was the main event.
Yeah.
Does anyone actually mentioned anything about Crawford Brook since? No. Why? Because of this.
Yeah.
As I said, in Australian boxing, this is the biggest screw over since when Fennec got robbed back in the early 90s, 30 years ago. Everyone's saying it's history repeated. Trust me, it'll be a massive card by itself with his brother, and if they can get, another title shot, possibly Susie Ramadan if she gets her IBF 150, 115, which would be ironically, if they can get her on the card, bang, they get 50,000 people there, no problem, because people would come.
But
they would come to support the Aussie boy.
Here is my argument. You have to factor in TV dates. You have to factor in if main event, depending on the timing, because Bob Arum has also said during this, in fact, let me play a little bit more of this, because, you have to factor in, if they're going to be able to televise it, when, and then understand that if a fight happens in Australia, it would be Sunday afternoon for you guys, but prime time for us over here in the States, just like Pacquiao versus Horn.
Yep, that wouldn't be a drama.
You have to think what are the schedules looking like? What obligations does Top Rank have around the time? Like, basically, to try to put on 2 cards during the time of pandemic when it's involving an American-based promotional company and American fight, it's just, because Franco and Teofimo are American fighters. There's 2 fights, different fights that you're taking your fighters over to Australia. Now, we've already talked about this, me and Big J, before. We talked about the fact that, well, if you want to put on fights and make money, bring them over to Australia. This is a case where they can do that, but it's just logistically, can it happen? Here, let's listen to some more Bob Arum real quick.
Yeah, that would be extremely exciting. Andrew Moloney, Joshua Franco and Teofimo Lopez with his world title belts against George Kambosos and others. That's exciting news. Back to the...
By the way, this is a friend of ours, Ben Damon, over with Fox Sports and Main Event Boxing over in Australia. So he is their #1 boxing journalist, correct? Right, Big J? Their #1 boxing guy over there? Like mainstream?
Yeah, they say he's the voice of Australian boxing.
Okay, the voice.
He's
Yeah,
the main commentator.
That's the great way. The voice of Australian boxing. I'm going to put the link to this full segment down below in the description box and pinned at the top of the comments. This is from Facebook Main Event Boxing. So basically, if you want the scoop on Australian boxing, he makes sure you get it.
Weekend, Bob, the scenes were obviously absolutely farcical. You've seen everything in boxing. Where does this rank?
I mean, it really pains me because they didn't have instant replay in Nevada. So the executive director asked me to help lobby the commission to do instant replay. I helped him write the legislation. Finally, we got it going. And then the first opportunity to use instant replay on a fight like this, where the result was clear from instant replay, they botched it.
Let me rewind back a little bit to what he said earlier about here. Start here.
Anonymous, that it was caused by a punch and there was no headbutt. Indeed, we have now procured from ESPN the slow motion of that fight, and you can see frame by frame that there was no swelling under Franco's eye until he gets hit by Andrew's punch. And then within the next couple of frames, you see the eye puffing up.
What's the timeline do you expect on us finding out what will happen with regards to this result being overturned potentially?
Well, one thing I'm sure of, whether they reverse it or don't, we're going to do another fight with Franco, and hopefully we'll do it in Australia and in the spring, and hopefully Andrew will be the champion at the time. But even if he goes in as the challenger, we're confident that he will continue to do what he did in those 2 rounds and come across with a victory over Franco. Hopefully the pandemic will be over in the spring. We'll have a vaccine. But even if it's not over and I have to come over early to quarantine myself, I'm going to do it. But Top Rank will be promoting that event in Australia. We hope to have additional title fights on the card. We're going to make it a massive, massive event, and it'll be a tribute to all the great boxers in Australia, particularly the Moloney brothers.
So so it's looking like Bob Arum is putting together a legal team to file a formal complaint against the WBA and the Nevada State Athletic Commission to hopefully have it overturned for a Moloney win. That would be, what they want, but it'll likely maybe be a no contest, and a rematch will likely be ordered. That seems as though the way it's going to be going. Now,
yeah, I don't see that going to overturn.
No,
Would the WBA vacate? Can they take the title off Franco and say, well, you guys can fight again, but it's a vacant title? Neither is the champion.
No, it ain't gonna be like that. No. They'll still keep Franco the champion and just say, all right, we'll just order a third fight.
And just order a third fight. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, and then the WBA, I have little faith in them, because
it's been well documented how much you hate them, so we all know that.
Yeah.
I just can't fathom why they've got 4 fucking belts. But anyway, I'm not getting into their fucking mess. So anyway, what happened? They went from one of the most prestigious belts to what the hell's going on now?
The
Anyway.
oldest organization.
Yeah, exactly. And they just anyway. I'm leaving them alone.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. They won't give two shits what I think about them anyway. So who cares?
So I was going to say in regards to if it does go down, Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos, I think that's a quality fight, especially for Australia, because for one,
Absolutely.
both of these guys, they can talk. And it's a legitimate fight because, see, me on this channel, I never clown fighters for fighting their mandatory. It's your mandatory. And, you know, for him defeating Lomachenko and for him to, you know, make some good money in Australia. And by the way, he hasn't expressed any disinterest in not fighting in Australia because of what happened with Pacquiao versus Horn. You know, so a lot of people feel, you know, ever since Pacquiao versus Horn, a lot of people feel, and you've talked about it, Big J, that, you know, you're going to go over there and get robbed. But in this case, you know, where a lot of people feel that maybe Teofimo can stop George Kambosos, you know, why not go over there and make some money? I mean, I'm down for fighters traveling and going making money internationally. You know, a guy like Floyd Mayweather, if he ever went over to the UK, can you imagine the numbers he would have did over there?
Oh yeah, it'd be huge. But the thing is that Teofimo would be looking. I mean, you know, as most people are worldwide, that George would be an easy mandatory defense.
And just get him out the way.
Would think that, most people would think that Lopez would knock him out inside of 5 rounds because he's a bloody powerful little bugger. So,
but now you have to factor in, though, since you said that the Maloneys can be their own card, you know, Franco Moloney 3 can be its own card. Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos, as you said, do people really, like, will they really come out for that fight? Is Teofimo known over there? Like, how would this fight sell? You know, what's the casual appeal?
The fight would sell, like, obviously they'd have to get some sort of really strong undercard. I can see Bob's point. You know, you can definitely, like, you know, the Franco Moloney fight would sell itself. The Teofimo George Lopez one would have a little bit more trouble
because it'll be all the belts though.
It's the significance of the fight. I mean, the last guy, as we've said in the last video, the last guy to fight for the lightweight title was Michael Katsidius against.
It'll be the first ever undisputed of this in Australia, like four belt era.
Exactly. I mean, Jeff Fennick fought for the IBF lightweight title back in '96, and he got knocked out, and that was the end of his career. I'm just
trying to see how it would sell without the Maloneys on the card. Like, you know, that's what I'm trying to see, because from what I've learned about the Australian boxing public, there's not a lot of hardcores. You know, it's more, you know, boxing events, just like mundane fights, are casual events. People go to have dinner, you know, and watch a fight. They don't really, you know. The IBL, excuse me, is very prestigious over there, and that should tell you something, hardcore boxing fans across the world. No disrespect to the IBO.
Well, we haven't really had an IBO champ, significant one, since Danny Green, and he's been gone for, 3 or 4 years. So, I think his last IBO win was back in, hang on, I've got the poster behind me, 2012. So that was the last time anyone of significance held an IBO title. So, yeah, but, obviously George would be a harder sell than what the Moloney fight would be. But, you know, they do what most promoters would. If they threw a novelty fight in there, say a footballer versus, you know, someone else, that would prove it up. But I can see why he's going to put the two cards together. But if he's going to do it in one card, he's got to do it in ANZ Stadium, because you'll get 80,000 people to that event without a drama. If you bring it down to Melbourne, you know, you're only going to get 55 at Marvel Stadium. I feel, as an Aussie fan, that's only giving 55,000 people to watch the fight.
But are your restrictions though? Like, you know, like wasn't Horn versus Zoo distanced? You know, we got to factor that in. You know, because
the restrictions are done here.
They're done.
See, the problem is at the moment he can't bring the fight to Melbourne because Melbourne is still under restrictions. It's like still social distancing. But in Sydney, in Brisbane and Sydney, like they had State of Origin on Wednesday night, Queensland won, go Queensland. They had a bloody full house there in bloody Suncorp the other. That's where Pacquiao fought Horn. They had 55,000 fans there.
Yeah, but that was we're talking about in the era of COVID. That's what I'm saying. Like, what if they go to plan this fight, and then remember, I'm not from there. You gotta explain it better to the American viewers. Like, what if they go to plan this fight in, let's say, April, and then some restrictions hit? Isn't April maybe your guys' summer, or your winter or something?
No. April is autumn, the fall. April is the fall.
So doesn't your flu season kick in?
Nah, flu season doesn't kick in until May.
Okay, so basically, it would be in their best bet to get this fight, in March.
Here's the thing that Bob Arum needs to study real fast. He needs to study the NRL draw. He needs to get this fight in before the NRL season kicks off.
I'm sure they have people for that.
Sorry?
I'm sure they have people for that in Top Rank that can do that,
Yeah. Well, let me save him some time. You need to get the fight done before the second week of March, because that's when the NRL season kicks off.
That's early.
Yeah. The NRL season kicks off around my birthday, around the 11th March, second week of March. That's
so
when
why are you saying it has to be done by then?
Because once the NRL season kicks off, boxing dies. Nothing happens. Remember, boxing.
But if it's a significant fight, if it's a significant fight, in the word of Bob Arum, it should move the needle, right?
It will move. It will move the needle, but it's like Pacquiao versus Horn was done in the winter in July. That was Pacquiao.
Yeah.
That was Pacquiao. Didn't matter. Pacquiao, huge name, big boxer. These guys aren't as popular as Pacquiao. That's the truth.
Yeah.
All right. So if they want to do it in March, they've got to do it before the football season starts, because that way they've got no competition. People will go, and they'll actually get the stadiums that they want. That's the other thing. Because the NRL
they'll be available.
Okay. The stadiums will be available. That's exactly right. They're like, yeah, sure, pack 80,000 people into the thing. That's great. Football season hasn't started yet. That way, there's just something else that they don't have to deal with. It's just one less hurdle to get over. Because I could only imagine the logistics for these things would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, if you go, oh, well, the football season starts on this week, we'll have it the week before the football season starts. Boom, there you go, 80,000 people at ANZ Stadium, no problem.
Yeah.
So, and they shouldn't really have it in April, especially not in late April. We've got Anzac Day football. They'll have no hope in hell of getting it done that weekend. So they need to stay clear of Anzac Day weekend. They're not going to have a hope in hell of getting it done that weekend. They need to do it in March.
Oh.
April's going to be a little bit more of a tall order. It's like, I don't know, would they have a boxing event at Florida State in the middle of the NFL season?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, you're right. That's one of the reasons why they say Wilder Fury Wilder 3 had to move off of the original December 19th date because of football, college, and pro football conflicts with the networks. So, yeah.
Well, same thing here. There's only the availability of the stadiums is only the real hurdle that they have.
Here it was network time. That's why I had to bring it up, with this fight, because it was like, well, if the networks aren't available, maybe that's the reason why they have to do one card. But
no,
all right.
Well, the networks wouldn't be there's only one boxing network in this country anyway, so that's not going to be a drama.
Yeah, that's main event.
It's main event. That's it. Main event. That's it. There is no other. It's all run by one mob in this country. That's problems they don't have to deal with.
Yeah, well, here we got ESPN, we got Fox Sports 1, ESPN Plus, Showtime. Yeah, we got
it's all just main event in this country. Pay-per-view's main event, one show, bang, done, easy.
Well, all right. Closing thoughts.
I really hope it does get it done. I mean, I'd like to see two separate cards, but then again, you made a good point of what are they going to do to build up the card for Teofimo, Lopez and George? Because, they're both not household names. So, but, yeah, if they're going to have a double card, they really need to take it to Sydney, because Sydney's not under restrictions and there's more – the stadium's bigger. It's almost twice the size in Sydney. I mean, if they could pack out the MCG, which is in Victoria, which is in Melbourne, which could hold 100,000 people plus another 15 on the ground, that would be great. But I'd love to see that happen, but I don't see them.
Yeah, and if they were able to pull that off during the COVID era, that'd be, amazing.
Yeah, the only thing I see is that Victoria still doesn't have large crowd openings. Mm-hmm. So let's just not go there yet. I mean, that's unfortunate, because that fight would warrant 100,000 people at the MCG to be the biggest boxing event ever. But unfortunately, Victoria still has not had huge gatherings. Which just, we've gone 3 weeks without any cases in Victoria, but they're still very cautious. They're still very cautious about things. They don't, So the other states are going great, but Victoria's still very cautious about things.
Well, when we're likely not going to hear anything, until after probably the new year. Top Rank has a card coming up with Shakur Stevenson in December, and I believe that's their last card for the year. I'm not quite sure, but as it stands right now, this is the first bit of information that's come out, since all of the fighters have completed their fights, to what can be happening, in the future in regards to Australian boxing. So, with that being said, our next video that we're going to be doing is going to be on Tim Tszyu versus, what is it, Bowen Morgan, or is it Morgan Bowen? It's Bowen Morgan.
No. Bowen Morgan.
Bowen Morgan. Yeah, and that's supposed to be
Bowen
when?
Morgan, yep.
December the 21st?
Nope, December 16th.
December 16th. So we're going to be doing a preview video. And then, of course, once they do their fight week and fight month preparation, which should be coming up very soon, a press conference, all that jazz, we're going to be right on it. This is TstreeT Controversy with FightView360.com. I'm going to put all of our social media information. You can follow Big J at Old Mate Big J on Twitter, and me at TstreeT4Life on Twitter. Please subscribe.